afternoon.
And then after Senator Wright, Senator Madigan.
Thank you. Look, I might take you first of all to some questions about the Federal Circuit Court. So do we have the right people here? If we don't, I might start with Family Court. It might be whichever's quicker and more efficient. So perhaps if we need to change, maybe we'll start with Family Court. How many minutes do I have, Chair? Just so I can time myself.
Yeah.
He's not here, so... All right, look, I might just start off. I don't want to waste any time. Regarding the Family Court, there have been a number of media reports in the past week regarding delays of up to 2 years for Family Court matters to be resolved. Is that a concern to you?
Well, any delay is a concern, obviously, Senator, and delays in family law matters create all sorts of issues for the parties. But interestingly, the clearance rate of matters in the Family Court at the moment is just over 100%. So the Family Court is disposing of matters that come in at about the same rate as they come in, which is very, very pleasing. The Federal Circuit Court, which is under different sorts of pressures, has a clearance rate of around 98%. So inevitably the delays in that court will increase. But the timeliness to trial, that is the average time from lodgement to the first day of trial in the Family Court. At the moment, the last 12 months was about 12.1 months, so it's about a year on average to go from lodgement to a trial date. So the 2 years, I mean, not every case in the court system is waiting 2 years. And I think I know the correspondence or the media you're referring to, in particular in Coffs Harbour, and that's a place where the Federal Circuit Court circuits. The court tries to reduce the delays in circuits. It provides additional resources wherever it can, but like most organisations, we've got to do the best we can with what we've got. But of course, any delay of such an extent is of concern.
What are the risks, I suppose? Would you identify what you said? Obviously it's undesirable and I think we'd all agree with that. What are the particular risks when cases take so long to be resolved?
Well, I guess there's a risk that parties might agree to do things that are not necessarily in the best interests of the children for the sake of expediency. But I think any delay, the risk just, if things aren't resolved as quickly as possible, the risk of the relationships being even less successful increased. I mean, I think family law is an area of the law which timeliness is a pretty critical thing, and the courts do the best they can.
Great human pressure in family law, isn't there?
Absolutely.
So I would imagine, and I'll ask you to comment on this, that some of the additional risks that would be of concern to anyone in terms of delays, particularly in the family court area, would be mental health issues. You know, I suppose pressure, depression, anxiety, those sorts of things with cases hanging over their heads. Family violence, frustration and pressure, and if there's issues around violence, I presume, and not being resolved, there's risks there as well?
Well, I think there's potential to exacerbate all of those situations, yes.
Yeah, and interestingly, yes, I hadn't thought, of course, the coercion, in a sense, the pressure to settle to get things done. Yeah, sure. Are you aware of any cases where lengthy delays have put either women or children at risk?
There certainly would be, but I can't actually think of any particular cases that have resulted in injury or death. I mean, obviously there are, but as I think the Chief Justice has said on a number of occasions, those dreadful outcomes are the result of a relationship breakdown, not necessarily a result of anything the courts, either the Federal Circuit Court or the Family Court orders have been made. And I know from discussions I've had with many judges that they are very, very concerned, and they do think very carefully about their orders and the impact of their orders have. And it is a dreadful responsibility that the judges have in this particular environment. But I think it's fair to say that many of these actions come about because of the relationships themselves, not because any orders the courts might have made.
No, and I'm not at all interested in court blaming in this in these questions. I think an excruciatingly difficult area of human relationships. So, but I am interested in the factors which either make it easier or more difficult to resolve these often difficult relationship issues as well as possible, given that we're dealing with fallible human beings and relationships. And that's why I'm interested in teasing out what the results of delays may be, and I certainly hear that the average that you've given, but there are some that are delayed. Does the government still intend to find $30 million from streamlining family court processes, or has that measure been abandoned? And I'm not sure who to ask that question of. But
well, you better ask that of me. Well, it wasn't a budget measure, but we are still looking for efficiencies in the family law system. I acknowledge the pressures under which the system operates, but we are still looking for efficiencies.
So I'm not quite sure what that means. Does that mean that there is going to still be the $30 million cut, or
well, that's
not?
not what I said. I said
Well, that's what I'm trying to clarify.
We're still looking for efficiencies.
I'm not sure what that means. And is there going to, are you reviewing that? It won't go ahead, or it may, or you? What does looking for efficiencies mean? Does that mean looking for places?
Well, Senator Wright, you've asked me a question. I've answered it in a particular way. I've chosen my words carefully.
I'm sure you have, but I don't think it sheds any light on what
well,
people
if it
want to
doesn't
know.
shed any light for you, then you will have to remain unilluminated.
Well, presumably then the public will also need to remain unilluminated,
Well,
because people are wanting to know this.
I think most people will understand that what looking for efficiencies means.
Well, with respect, I don't think I'm a stupid person, but I don't know what that means. Does that mean that you are looking to cut some but maybe not that full amount, or that there has been a cut announced?
Well, Senator, I told you that there was no budget measure to that effect.
Right.
I told you that we continue to look for efficiencies. If
Thank
there
you.
was more I were able to tell you,
All right.
I would.
Thank
and
you.
the fact that I have said those two things and not more should indicate to you that that's as far as I'm able to help you.
I didn't fully hear what you said the first time. I apologise for that. I'm actually
Sorry.
having a bit of trouble hearing, so I didn't hear you
Oh,
say
I'm
that
sorry,
there is
Senator
no
Wright.
budget measure, and now I'm clear on that.
There is no budget
you can
measure to
perhaps
that
understand
effect.
why I didn't understand what
I'm
looking
sorry.
for
Well,
further
I didn't mean to be
savings
rude
means.
to you, but if you didn't
Yeah.
hear the first part, I now understand why
Yes.
you found the second part unilluminating.
All right. So, will the efficiency dividend result, I'm back to the family court now, in compounded delays, if there are efficiencies found, which means we all understand that actually means reduced funding in one way or another, would that result in compounded delays for the family court? And would that potentially blow out the average time taken to resolve cases? What are the risks?
I think there's not any reduction in our funding affects not only the family court but also has a corresponding effect on the federal circuit court, because there's now one appropriation which is split between the two courts. So any reduction in the funding has an impact across both jurisdictions. And that's not just in family law, that could affect the general federal law aspect of the federal circuit court as well. But I can only repeat what I've said in the past, that any further significant reductions in staffing numbers, and we currently have 789, which includes the judges, and with the budget papers we've reduced that figure to 766, which is a reduction of 23. And we've yet to form a plan around how that might happen, but I think it's a given that there will be some impacts on, as I said earlier to Senator Singh, in relation to the services we provide to the people who come to the courts, the litigants, and the services that the administration provides to the judges to enable them to do their work.
Thank you. And in relation to the circuit court, and I don't know if you need to have someone come up now about that, perhaps if I can just indicate the question I'm going to ask. Some time ago, the circuit court indicated that it needed more judges just to keep up with demand. And I'm interested in knowing how many more are estimated now to keep up with the current demand.
Well, I might be able to help you with that as well, Senator. I don't want to cut off the Deputy CEO, but I can tell you that I had a discussion about 5 weeks ago, I think it was, with the Chief Judge Pascoe, about appointments to the court. We identified the upcoming vacancies that are going to be arising over the next 6 to 12 months. Some of them are arising quite soon, actually. When I addressed the annual colloquium of the court following that meeting, I did repeat to the judges the assurance I'd given the Chief Judge that those vacancies will be filled. So that will, and there may be some reallocation among the different registries of the positions to more accurately reflect where the demand for judges is. The Chief Judge was very satisfied with that meeting and with the assurances that I'd given him. So,
thank you. Mr Agnew, can I ask you then, thank you, Attorney. The question was that some time ago the court indicated it needed more judges. Now, I'm not sure if that actually meant more judges as in filling the vacancies that were already there, or even taking into account the vacancies, more judges on top of that. So I guess my question is, how many judges do you think, or how many more judges do you estimate are needed to keep up with the current demand, in an ideal world perhaps?
Steve Agnew, Executive Director of Operations, Federal Circuit Court. I wouldn't like to put a figure on it, Senator. As the attorney has pointed out, he's had meetings with the Chief Judge, and I wasn't part of those meetings, so no. I can't advance that. I suppose the concerns for the court is the growth in the workload, particularly in general federal law and migration matters. It's causing some concern.
Can I just add to that?
Yes.
I agree with that. That's where, and this has been my view for a long time, I won't dwell on it.
No, please don't, because I haven't got much time.
That's where I see the growth of this court. At the moment, about 85% or so of its matters are family law matters, but there is a growing general federal law jurisdiction, especially in migration matters. Right. And I want to build the capacity of this court, and the judges know that.
Can I just ask then, Mr Agnew, what are the priority areas for the court? And in particular, I might ask you about, in terms of the actual geographical areas, and whether Parramatta is one of those.
Well, we're obviously concerned with all areas of the court, and I think you're probably referring to local media about a movement of a judge from Parramatta to Melbourne.
I'll come back to what I wasn't actually referring to that, but
Sorry.
I'm happy to hear about that.
Oh, that was probably as a consequence of a need to move a judge to Canberra in response to another judge's incapacity due to illness, and the growing workload, particularly in migration matters in Melbourne. So,
well, actually, I understood that Parramatta may be one of the priority areas. So, if that's the case, and if there are others, and why. But I also, perhaps just to give you the chance to answer these, I'm also aware that last month barristers took a very unusual step of writing to to Chief Judge John Pascoe about concerns about the backlog of cases in Parramatta particularly. That's what I was asking the question about. So are there priority areas? What are they? And in particular, what's the situation regarding Parramatta?
Parramatta at the moment, we have moved a judge from Parramatta to Melbourne in response to the increased workload in Melbourne. What we're doing in terms of Parramatta is offering extra assistance by way of our national roster, and we're providing additional support by bringing judges in and out of Parramatta to assist with the workload there.
So do you have priority areas in terms of managing demand where potentially the court isn't meeting the demand, there's more delays, there's more backlog?
Well, I think generally the workload of the court is a busy workload, and we focus on all areas of the court, and we have a system whereby we have a national relief roster, and we have a judge each judge allocates a week to that roster, and where we have pressure areas for various reasons from different times, we allocate the judge to that particular registry to assist in that location. So then, is that what has specifically occurred to address the concerns raised by the barristers who wrote to the Chief Judge? We're providing additional assistance to Parramatta at the moment, yes. Mm-hmm. And similarly, if efficiencies are to be found
in the federal circuit court, and I appreciate that they're under the same rubric really, but what would be the impact on services there? What would people see on the ground?
I probably couldn't add any more than Mr Foster's already offered.
So increased delays then in terms of resolution of matters?
Potentially there could be increased delays. Potentially there could be other services affected, but...
What sort of services? I'd like to get a sense of what it is that that money's spent on that might not be there. Is it transcription services? Is it interpreters? What's at stake here?
It could mean that we have to...
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
It could mean that we have to reduce the number of family reports that are prepared either by our internal resources or our external resources, that the courts may not have access to the number of family reports they get now, which is a very important tool for the judges to make decisions in either jurisdiction.
Yes.
To have a properly qualified consultant to look at what the family arrangements would be for children. And that's a big spend in our environment.
Yes,
it's about $6 or $7 million worth of money spent on family reports.
Do they actually detail issues like violence within the relationship and so on?
Yes, they can. Yeah.
Okay. So
we would reduce travel, and we've set up a new video conferencing system throughout the whole network, which enables people to come into our system without cost. And so the courts, wherever possible, themselves use that system. We certainly in the administration now would meet far more often by video link than face-to-face, so we've reduced our travel costs significantly.
You have already done that?
We've been reducing our costs, as everyone else has, over the last decade probably. And that's part of, I think, the thing about the efficiency dividend, which that makes you look inward and work out the best way you can reduce your costs, which is a sensible business thing to do.
But there comes a limit.
I think there becomes a limit. But we look at our use of consultants, which the courts have reduced dramatically. We try and do as many reviews as possible with their internal resources.
What do consultants do?
Well, for consultants, if we have an area of concern, it might be about structure, or it might be about particular cost. It might be looking at growth in the cost of interpreters. How can we change the way we deal with interpreters? What contractual arrangements can we change? All of that now, whereas we might have looked for external help, we would now do internally. So it's wherever we can reduce our costs. We examine it line by line, and we do. And I think one of the significant things was several years ago, the Chief Justice and the Chief Judge agreed to join the administration together, and we saved $7.8 million. Regrettably, the government...
No, you can't.
Can I flag if there's extra time? I have another couple of questions for the Attorney General
I'll come back.
specifically.